Hey everybody, welcome to Tuesday Night Show and Share, where we come every Tuesday night to show off projects we're working on, or things that we've completely messed up, or things that we finished and we love. We like to hear about all kinds of making, how it's made, how long it took. Everything about it is interesting and fun. We have a sign-up sheet. If you didn't get up on the sign-up sheet, just like wave at me and I'll add you to the bottom of the list. Otherwise, first we have Russell, who is not showing a lamp. He's showing a fail because it's not a lamp.
Okay, I had to figure out how to make a 9-inch hole, and I will show you this, if I can find the picture. Whoa. Let's try this. There we go. That's a picture of something. I'm not telling. Come on. But I needed to have a 9-inch hole, okay? So, here's my router jig. Router goes here. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, the router goes here, and you put like a pin down in here, and that way you can make a circle. Drill a hole in your, whatever it is you're cutting the circle out of. Put a pin down through there. In my case, I use a bolt. Put the bolt down in there, and it holds the center, and that way you can go in a circle in much better than freehand. Well, I needed a 9-inch hole, and this jig would only come out to like 8.5. So I thought, okay, I'll just make a little jig. So I make this jig. Here's the new pin that I'll use, and this attaches like thus. So with the router here, now I can make a big old hole. Does anybody see the problem? No, it's wood. I needed a 9-inch hole, and I made the jig to measure 9 inches from here to here. Duh. Now math. Now I can make an 18-inch hole. Comes to find out, all it took was just from here to here, which is 4.5 inches, and would make my 9-inch hole. So there's your math geometry lesson for the day. I can't believe I admitted that, but hey, we're supposed to show our fails as well as successes. How long did it take to figure out? Well, it only took maybe 30 minutes, maybe not even that long, to make the jig. And then when I attached my router to it and stretched it out there, I thought, oh, palm to forehead. That took like 10 seconds.
Very nice. Next up we have Tim, who has a disc golf cart. Fancy.
Apparently will not roll over kids. I've been playing disc golf for about a year, and in the wintertime and most of this fall, spring, it's no big deal. But whenever it gets to be 95 degrees and 10,000% humidity, it starts to get a little bit warm. So first thing I wanted was a place to sit. So I built this cart, which has an actual seat on the top that lifts up so you can get your discs out so you can play the game. And underneath it, there is a cooler down in here. And this just lifts out, and you can get down into the cooler and get whatever you need out of it. Originally, I was wanting to build the cooler where it would actually slide out, but there's only so much height that you can actually have on this. And the more complexity that I put down here, the worse all that's going to be. And I also wanted to keep it very, very light. And this one was just going to be a prototype. I've actually got a bunch of old baby gates that I've salvaged from a local recycling center, and I'm going to weld all those together into a cart whenever I'm actually done with it, just seeing how this fits and finish right now. This piece is actually from a stick golf bag cart, and picked it up from Carm for $10. It's this piece, the wheels, and had a whole bunch of other parts that I couldn't really use. But it's actually metal that you could weld, so I figured, you know, I can use that for that. All of this is just old workbench that I had that I recycled into something useful. So really I'm invested like $10 in this whole thing so far. There are people who've built these things, and they've gotten some very intricate ones. But like I said, for mine, I'm just wanting to keep it very, very simple. Like this one's probably not one of the more intricate ones. This guy just took an old milk crate and stuck wheels on it. But then you got that one, which the guy actually took some time and put PVC pipe on it, actually put his bag in it, similar to what this one is, but his is over shoulder type bag. And with mine, another time when math came in handy was whenever I first built it, I measured it to the cooler, because the bag would actually set on the cooler and still allow the pouches to come out where you could put your drink holders and stuff in it. But I didn't account for adding a little extra wiggle room so you could actually get the cooler out of the cart. So with the very first one of these that I built, the thing was so tight in there you had to hammer the cooler in it in order to get it out of there. So obviously that didn't work. And then this is iteration 2, and just went with it. The hinges are 3D printed. The spacers that allowed me to use 1/2-inch bolts on the wheels are also 3D printed. Because the wheels that came on it were cocked off at some weird angle, and they would have been like this on the back of the cart. So, you know, you're not going anywhere except round in a circle. But that's basically what we got. And the whole plan on this was to keep it lighter than the ones that you actually have to pay for, which, you know, can run up to $200, $300, $500, and they run about 15 pounds. This came in at 14. So.
I can't wait to see the Baby Gate recycled one. That'll be cool.
Hopefully it'll be lighter.
Yeah. Next up we have Cooper, who's showing off his 3D printer. Where is it?
It's in the other room.
Come on.
I feel like bringing it in here. We can go look at it
You go look
afterwards.
at it in the other room.
We can all go as a group. So this is just kind of an update on my tool changing 3D printer. How does this work again? I recently moved both of the extruder here and then the sort of cable tie over here to the front of the printer. That's not really that interesting. I was just going to show up. So I've got 2 tools for the 3D printer right now. This one is a direct drive hot end. It's called an orbiter extruder. It's like a really teeny tiny little 3D printer extruder, and it's really good for stuff like this. And this one is really good for printing like flexible stuff. I just got it printing TPU, which is like basically a rubbery type material, and it's doing that pretty well. This is the fan on the side of it. I had a lot of trouble getting good part cooling on these, just getting enough cold air to blow down all around it. So getting these fan shrouds done was a big challenge. There's a lot of like swooping curves and like very organic shapes that are kind of hard to do in CAD. Yeah, all the parts on here were 3D printed by the 3D printer in a different state of disrepair. It was it's starting to look kind of nice now, but it was just kind of a huge mess at my house with stuff sort of half plugged in and hanging in every direction. And then this is the second tool. This is oh wow, that white looks really bad on the screen, but this is it's called a Bowden drive head. So basically the extruder is actually all the way back sitting on the frame so that less weight is on the hot end as it moves around. So this one can print a good bit faster. And I think just because it's lighter, it tends to get really good results. And this is kind of the fan shroud. I'm real proud of myself, so I've been putting W's on all of the stuff. This is the new main board I got, and as much of a mess as it looks like, I'm really excited because this is a new one that this is called the BTT Octopus, and it you can run like 8 stepper motors and 4 hot ends all at the same time, with like 8 more fans or something like that. So I was kind of running out of just plugs on my old main board, and I was actually using just like a spare connector on the main board to heat up one of the hot ends, and so it would take like a full 10 minutes for one of them to heat up, and the other one could do it in like 30 seconds. Then kind of the last thing, I was going to explain how the tool changing part works. This is the sort of the end that's attached to the 3D printer with the belts and moving all around, and it should have 6 of these dowel pins in here. One of them fell out because I forgot to glue it in. But basically it's got these 3 sets of 2 dowel pins, and then these are a bunch of magnets in the middle of it. And on the backside of all the tools, they've got 3 ball bearings that will basically, each ball bearing will sit in between one of the sets of dowel pins. So the reason that we do that instead of doing something 3D printed is that even though they're all glued into 3D printed plastic, which is like very imprecise, and you're not going to get the dimensional accuracy of like something that's been machined out of metal, but once you've super glued all of this hardened metal into the 3D printed plastic, it tends not to move very much. So even if it's not extremely accurate, it is extremely repeatable. And sort of that distinction is a kind of a big deal in like CNC machine tool changing, because even if the 2 hot ends, when you switch them back and forth, the end of the nozzle is never exactly in the same place. One's always sort of off to the side of the other one. But all of that can sort of be controlled for in the firmware. But as long as each nozzle goes back to the same place as it did before, you're never going to lose your place, or the 3D printer's never going to lose its place. So that's kind of why it's important to do that. And it just has a bunch of magnets to sort of hold them on, so it will just sort of take it to its dock, which has a few pins going sideways, and it'll sort of lock onto it and then pull back, and it just pulls the tool right off of the end of it. So basically I'm just kind of getting everything set back up, and then hopefully I should get 3D prints coming soon. But if anybody wants to see it, it's back there in the electronics bay, and I'll just be playing with it tonight. That was about all I had.
So the last piece, the magnetic, looks
Mm-hmm.
very symmetrical.
Yeah.
Are the magnets set so that the nozzle will only go in one direction if you try to put it in a different direction? Magnetism?
Yeah, so it is like perfectly sort of radially symmetric. So you could take one of these nozzles and turn it, a third of the way around and stick it back on. But let me see if I've got another picture over here. This piece in white you see right here is sort of I call them like the tool rack, and it's mounted to the frame of the 3D printer, and these 2 bolt heads are what hold pins that are going into it. So it's only ever going to be sitting right side up when it goes to get picked up. There's basically no way it could end up turned the other way.
Oh, I just thought you used to polarize magnets.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah, so I had to be really careful when I glued those magnets in, is I basically had them in a stack, and I would just like just put glue on the bottom and then clamp the whole stack on, and then just move the stack one over every time. I ended up throwing away a lot of magnets, having to figure that trick out. Did anybody else have any questions? Yeah, Russell.
Yeah, I think that you can do a tool change. When do you, in 3D printing, in what circumstances do you need to use more than one type?
Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of one of the things that they're kind of figuring out right now is exactly if you want to 3D print something with more than one colors or more than one material, there's kind of a couple different ways people are doing that right now. And the reason you'd want to do that is, if you've got more than one color, it's just sort of, the difference between black and white and color TV is like, if you can 3D print in color, that'd be pretty cool. And then 3D printing parts that are actually made out of 2 different materials at the same time can be really advantageous depending on if you want to make a part that's flexible, like with the TPU material in some spots, but then rigid with like ABS or PLA and others. And 3D printing also, because sort of some of the avenues that it opens up with, like internal geometry that can't really be machined and stuff. When you start adding different materials sort of inside a part, you can really play around with like the material or the whole part's properties. But so like one solution that we've got, like our Prusa, we haven't hooked it up yet, but we've got like the multi-material unit, which that will just pull the filament out of the hot end and insert a new filament into the same hot end. One of the downsides of that is that you have to purge a lot of material because you end up with sort of mixed color plastic in the already melted area of the nozzle. So you end up wasting a lot of material, and with a tool changer, theoretically, all your different nozzles are set up for one color, so there's no purging. You have to do priming just to keep them from stringing or oozing, but it theoretically uses less material. And then I guess lastly, if you're using different materials that have different melt temperatures, you can also have a lot of problems purging one material. If you're using like a high temperature plastic and a low temperature plastic, you're gonna have a lot of trouble purging the high temperature out of the hot end with the low temperature plastic. So you can get less jamming as well. I kind of did it that way just because I thought it was the coolest and it seemed like the funnest challenge. Yeah.
So, with inconsistency in indexing, like during the tool change, is that something you kind of iterated your way out of, or did you manage to kind of avoid that problem altogether?
You mean like inconsistency, like if it just like misses the tool and fails to pick it up, or what do you mean?
Not fails to pick it up, but indexing as far as like how the actual like print head is going to be aligned on the gantry.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's kind of designed. Theoretically, it's designed where each nozzle should be in exactly the same place across each different tool. So whatever inconsistency there is just the 3D printer didn't 3D print the part accurate enough, or the hot ends are, I paid $20 for it on Amazon, so they're probably not made the exact same either. But yeah, I would sort of just iterate that by printing a bunch of just first layers with like concentric circles or squares, which I think there's some people have already made models like that where, yeah, like I said, it's just a bunch of concentric squares and you sort of will just measure the gap in between one side or the other. And then you can go back in the firmware and just tell it to move the nozzle in the opposite direction.
You've never had issues though in, say you have one head on and switch to the other and you switch back, you've never had inconsistency in that single head's placement, like issues with that repeatability?
Yeah, no, it's been surprisingly good for that. I'll often use it as, I can just go into the firmware and sort of deactivate one or the other extruder, and it just thinks it's a regular 3D printer, and it will pick up one tool and just go from the start. And if I don't touch it, like the bed never gets unleveled, even though they have different Z heights. And I can switch to both, and it will still be like well leveled with either nozzle. So I'm at least reasonably confident that every time it picks up tool one, that nozzle is always in the same place relative to the end effector. Yeah, I think that's about it. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Last on our list, we have Sean with art card thing.
Yes, so there is a new part to the art cart. As some of you may have seen in the Arts and Crafts Zone, we have this art cart that I've been slowly stocking with all of our supplies, getting them out of the boxes, off the shelves, and into view. I've had these paint holders, laser cut paint holders for a while now, and those are stackable, holds all the paints nice and neat, categorizes them. We've added marker holders to the bottom, so if you're using markers, please put the markers back into the holders there. And the most recent addition is this tray for all the paintbrushes. So the paintbrushes no longer live in a box, they live in this tray. As you can see, there are multiple compartments for the paintbrushes. I got big brushes Everything in between, small brushes. If you're using glue or any sort of thing that might gum up and permanently, I'm holding it, permanently mess up a brush, use the disposable plastic ones, please. Also, as a PSA, please just wash your brushes. Don't end up like this one. It's useless. I don't know if you can see it. There you go. Just completely frozen over with paint, so please don't be that person. Also, there is storage for pallets and pallet knives and things such of that nature if you want to get your inner Bob Ross on. So all I ask is that you make something cool with them, and please return everything clean and organized and ready for everyone else's enjoyment. Yes, Sue?
What if I use the last of the yellow paint or the last of the black marker? What do I do?
Just let me know. You know, just put a note somewhere or message me on Mattermost or, an oops stick would work. I mean, we also have about 5 different colors of yellow, so if you are specifically needing that yellow, I guess we'll get another one, but there are plenty to use there. The trays are sort of organized by color, so there's plenty of options. But yeah, and those have all been donated over the years too, so some might be dried out and you could just throw those away, but over time they'll all get replenished. But yeah, so if there isn't, if the tray falls apart spontaneously or whatever, also please file an oops ticket for that. But yeah, so that's just my show off and also a little PSA and also encouraging people to use the art cart to their heart's content. Thank you.
We are done with shares for the night, but we have one announcement, and David's going to give it.
So we talked about this last week, I think. We are currently in the works of putting on a maker market, Sunday, August the 14th. It'll be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We are currently looking for 40 vendors and 2 to 3 food trucks. Vendor prices for members will be $15 per vendor booth, and then $35 for non-members. We'll also be offering free tables, a select amount of free tables for people who just want to come and show off things that they've made. So if you don't have stuff that you sell, but you think something's cool and you want to come show it off, feel free to come do that as well. And most importantly, we'll need volunteers. So we'll be planning on doing tours, demos maybe, hopefully. Need help with parking, vendors will need help, all that stuff. And we're hoping to make it a really big banger of an event. So the more help, the more likely that will be the case. If you can't volunteer your time or be there on that day, there are also things that could be made, like signs, donations like water coolers, canopies, maybe walkie-talkies. I don't know if that's totally necessary, but anything that might be useful to help run an event would be greatly appreciated if it could be donated. And I believe by tomorrow, you should be able to buy a vendor spot. If you're a member, you'll get a head start before the general public does. So if that is something you're interested in, please make sure you get into it before they're gone. I think we already have almost 10 people who are members interested in getting a spot, so make sure you hop on it.
How do we get involved?
Well, you're going to message me at some point. Now that I know the website will be done by tomorrow-ish, you'll see signs around that'll probably have like a QR code to message me and to join the channel for the volunteer channel. I believe the volunteer channel is called Knox Makers, Makers Market -08/14/22. Just message me and I'll add you to it if you can't find it. And if you're a vendor, you do need to message me because that channel is private, just so we don't get anyone in there who doesn't need to be in there, essentially. But yeah, any other questions about it? Cool. Hope we see you guys there. It's about just over a month away.
Super cool. We have a couple classes coming up. There's none this week that are open anymore, but next week there is a new member onboarding on Thursday. If you're a trial member, this is required to get your full membership. So there's one Thursday evening, and then there'll be one on a Tuesday evening later in the month. But next Thursday is the next one. Also on Saturday, the 16th, there's a MIG welding, which is the authorization for metalworking, right? Yeah. And then on Sunday, the 17th, there is a woodworking 101, which is the authorization for the wood shop. Other than that, take a look at the calendar, knoxmakers.org/events. We always have stuff coming up, even if we don't talk about it here. As far as weekly maintenance, can I get someone to change the trash tonight? Thank you, Russell. I looked at the air conditioner filters and they didn't look bad, but if someone notices that they look crappy, can someone also change those? And also, I'm going to be tidying up the hack rack right after that, so if anyone wants to help me throw junk in the dumpster, please come out and help. And that's all I've got for tonight. Go make stuff.